The end of the career and the idea of life without football after strong careers. They don't come much stronger than that of Warren Moon, who was a Hall of Fame NFL quarterback. And we also bring in Antonio Freeman, who was a wide receiver for 9 seasons in the NFL, 8 of those with Brett Favre throwing to him. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you for joining us. First off, Warren, let's say Brett Favre does say he is retiring. Do you believe him?
I don't. I think Brett Favre is a guy who, like Chris Mortensen said, lives in the moment, and he feels like right now probably he doesn't feel like he can play a full season. Maybe that ankle's not responding the way he wants to, but that doesn't mean it's not going to respond in the next 3 weeks or the next month or whatever, and maybe he changes his mind and wants to come back then. So until this season is pretty much over and he hasn't shown his face, that's when I'll believe that Brett Favre is not playing this year.
Antonio, there's been all this talk. The Vikings are trying to get on with Cam, Tavares Jackson, Sage Rosenfels are trying to do their jobs right now without knowing. How does this indecision affect the way those guys prepare for the season?
I think it affects how they prepare tremendously. Everybody is expecting Brett Favre to be there, and he's not there. So now Tavares Jackson has to take more reps than he may have been wanting to. Sage Rosenfels as well. I think this Brett Favre saga really puts this football team in a tough situation. But we got to keep in mind, one of the major players that we haven't mentioned yet is Darrell Bevell. Darrell Bevell was the glue to bringing Brett Favre into Minnesota. And I haven't heard his name dropped yet. So I'm waiting to hear the Darrell Bevell phone call that was made from Favre before I even take this situation any serious.
Like Warren was even saying, even at that point, it may be an entire season until people really believe that he's committed to it. Warren, we saw that tape of him earlier from 2 years ago, saying that there was no way he was coming back. Just from what you know of him as an athlete and as a professional yourself, when a guy sits and says that, does he really believe it, or is he saying what he thinks that he needs to say?
I think in Brett, he kind of believes what he feels at that particular moment. Like I said earlier, that he's a guy that changes his mind all the time, whether it's in a ball game or whether it's in his life and in the decisions that he makes in his life. And you can look at the way he might read a play out in a game. A play might have a certain read to it, but if Brett has a certain feel about what he wants to do on that play, and I'm sure Antonio can speak to this, that you always have to have your head on a swivel ready for the football, because even though the read doesn't take him that way, maybe he feels like I've got a matchup over here that I want, or I just have a feeling that I want to go this way with the football, and that's what he does. So he kind of does the unexpected on the field, and he's shown that he does the unexpected off the field in some of his decision making. But again, I just don't feel like he's going to miss this season, only because he's playing at such a high level last year, and if he can still play physically and still feels up to it, I think he'll be back this year. Antonio,
you play with Brett Favre. What do you think's going through his mind right now?
Well, I just have flashbacks from that last play of the football season last year. And if Brett Favre's ankle, which was damaged in that game, was 100%, I think he runs forward for another 7, maybe 10 yards, puts them closer for a field goal. And I think that's playing a role in Brett Favre's head. And he feels as though if he has to play the entire season feeling like he's limited in the capacity of being able to move around or run for that 7 yards, as we saw the situation play out last year in the NFC Championship, those are the type of reasons that would prevent Brett Favre from coming back for this 2010 football season.
Antonio, besides the fact that he, like you said, he wasn't able to run for those yards, he finished his career on an interception, not the way somebody wants to go out. How much do you think that play, that kind of ending, weighs on his mind?
I don't think it weighs much. He went through the same situation in Green Bay. His final play as a Green Bay Packer was an interception to Webster for the Giants. Same situation here in Minnesota. I'm not sure what his last pass attempt was in New York, but I don't think that plays a part as well as anything. I think that ankle is the main thing that we need to worry about. And if he feels limited in any way, I think that's going to sway his decision.
Warren, you had a long NFL career yourself. When you come to that point where you think this is it, what is it like when you're thinking about the rest of your life without playing football?
Well, you got to remember, this is a game that we've probably played, I'm sure Brett or myself have played since we were young kids, and it's something that you just know and love every year this time of the year that you're going to be playing football. So it's a hard game to walk away from if you love it the way he does, and if you play the game the way he does, with the passion that he plays with, the enthusiasm that he plays with, the energy that he plays with, to walk away from it, especially when you're playing at a high level. And most guys do not want to leave the game if they still feel like they can play it at a certain level that they're accustomed to. Brett Favre showed last year, in having one of his best seasons, that he can still do that. But that ankle injury, I'm sure, is weighing on it. And it could be a financial thing, too, as well. You look at Sam Bradford, just signed a contract for $13 million on an average. Well, that's what Brett's going to make this year. And he's also looking at maybe Peyton Manning and Tom Brady making in excess of $20 million a year. So maybe Brett is doing this as a ploy to get more money out of Minnesota. You just never know. But I still think the guy is going to be on the football field because he still can play.
Antonio, if he were to retire, what could he possibly do in his life that would replace what it is that playing football gives him?
I think that's a troubling thing that goes through Brett Favre's mind every day. It's something that we all have to deal with at one point in time. But football has been such a huge part of his life. 19 years, 285 starts. That's a lot to have to walk away from. All the relationships that you come across, and you make acquaintances with people throughout your entire career. Football becomes your family, more so than your home life family. And that's because we spend a lot of time in that locker room. We spend a lot of time on plane trips, home games, away games. 75% of our time is spent inside the locker room. So that's the most challenging thing, I think, at this point for Brett Favre, aside from that ankle that he's dealing with.
Warren, right now, what does Brett Favre owe to his teammates as far as making a decision and sticking with it either way?
I think he just owes him his honesty. He just needs to let them know exactly what he's going to do one way or another so they can move forward. And all this going back and forth, I'm sure, weighs on all their players' minds as to, are we going to have Brett this year? Are we not? Who is going to be our leader? And you're talking about, you know, one of the most important positions on the football team, that you want to make sure that position is solidified so you know who you're going to rally behind, whether it's going to be Tavares Jackson or whether it's going to be Brett Favre. So if he owes them anything, I think it's just to come out and say, guys, I can't do it anymore, or for whatever reason why he's not coming back, just let them know one way or another if he's going to be there.
Antonio, in the 10 seconds we have left, if Brett Favre says he's retiring and comes back, what's your reaction going to be?
I won't be surprised at all.
No, well, that was a nice short answer. Antonio Freeman, Warren Moon, gentlemen, thanks both of you for joining us. We appreciate the insight. If you want to check out our poll about Brett Favre or anything that is going on with our many discussions today, the poll today is, if reports of his retirement are true, will he stay retired, yes or no? Same question we put to them. You can go to ESPN.com from the video tab on the front page, click on Outside the Lines. While you're there, you can also check out other OTL features. Send us an email. You can sign up for our daily program alert. Poll results later in the show. Stay with us. When we come back, Storylines update on White Sox manager Ozzie Guillen. They say he doesn't like the way baseball treats Latin American players. The powers that be aren't thrilled with him. Stay with us.